Welcome to Confessions of an EOS Implementer, a podcast by Talent Harbor. We share unique stories of EOS implementers and the companies they've transformed to give you a rare glimpse into the successes and the challenges of the system in action. I'm your host, Ryan Hogan. Let's jump in. Hey, welcome to Confessions of an EOS Implementer, brought to you by Talent Harbor. Today, we're joined by Bruce Sheridan, a certified EOS implementer and a beacon for business transformation. Today, we talked about everything from the relationship between an integrator and a visionary, signs of a bad culture, and then a key data point that came out of EOS that shows that over 80% of success comes from the right people in the right seat. It's all about talent and how do you take that team to solve the problems of the organization, hold each other accountable, and achieve the milestones that you've set up. So can't wait for you to hear this episode. Enjoy. It's coming up. But Bruce, like one of the things that I read about you was that you've held 125 EOS sessions. Like, is that correct? 125?
Oh, I'm approaching 300.
300. Okay. So because that was in two different places. So if you add them together, now you have over 300.
Well, I'm not there. I'll celebrate when I'm like 285 or 290 or something.
That's incredible. And
yeah,
I'm such a believer in the system. When I think about like the impacts that it had to hunt a killer and our ability to scale and focus on the right things, like what are the biggest things that you see as you're implementing the system into other businesses?
I think going back to a business owner thinking about EOS, right? They could have been running their business for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, and it's, putzing along. And then here I come saying, oh man, I could take you to the moon. And they're like, what? Like, what makes you think you can do that? I'm like, well, I've done it a lot. So they have a little bit of, I think a lot of people don't even entertain hiring an EOS implementer because they think, okay, it's just one more consultant that's going to take my money and I'm not going to get anything. But I've been doing this for so long. I've probably led thousands of leadership team meetings over the course of my career. So when they come in, I don't think they have any idea about how powerful it is and what it's going to do to their company. And I'm almost afraid to say it out loud, but usually within 30 minutes of talking to a prospect, I'm going around the table, like say there's 5 people, 6, 7 people. I'm looking and going, you're not going to be here in a year. You're not going to be here in a year. And you're not going to be here in a year. And I know it because I'm just thinking, wow, you're holding this place back. You need to go. And sometimes a client will say, you knew? I'm like, yeah, I kind of knew. They go, why didn't you tell us? I said, well, what would it look like if I know you for 10 minutes and I say, you 3 aren't going to be here in a year? That was like, it'd be like, okay, let's just leave now. You're never going to want to hire me. They're going to be fighting and kicking. So it's this course of learning the model, learning the tools, learning the process of how it all fits together. Because, we've been around like 20 years. I think we're over 23,000 sessions now with clients. No, I'm sorry, 23,000 companies, like 150,000 sessions with clients. So this is not theory. It is proven. It works. So I think the biggest thing I've seen is it's very difficult. Yeah, well, it's impossible. I don't even try to instill in them, you're going to be blown away in 2 years. They just have to be committed to the process, use the tools. A lot of them want to change things and tweak things, and that's not what the book says. I'm like, yeah, it is. Read it again. It's all that stuff.
And one of the things you just said that resonates, and especially it goes along with the 5 dysfunctions of a team where like when you can look around, you can say like great human, amazing person, but not the right person for this team. Like what are the signs that you see? Like, when you're interviewing a team and you can already kind of see like who's already balled in and who can take this organization to the next level and who can't. Yeah. Like what are kind of some of those signs that you're seeing?
Well, some of them are very slight. And I think by doing it for so many years, I started doing this type of work like 2 years out of college. So I've literally have facilitated thousands of leadership team meetings over the last about 40 years. So you pick that up. As I become a better coach and facilitator and teacher, I can see things, even subtle things I can see. but some of them are so flagrant. Like I was working with a manufacturing company, and the GM or president, whatever you want to call it, he just sits back and he says, I've got like I calculated, I need to work like 2 or 3 more years to comfortably retire. So I'm just coasting. And I'm thinking, wow, this is bad. And sure enough, about a year later, the owner got rid of that guy, got rid of the head of engineering. They brought on a new president. They brought on a CFO, which they didn't have before. And then they brought on a new head of engineering, and the company tripled revenue and tripled profit, 3 times profit. It went from like 4 to 12%, and their revenue went from 10 million to 30 million.
It's incredible. It's the power of right person, right seat. Like,
yeah. And also the other things too, the owner was working like 80 hours a week, and he was so, when I met him, he almost, it's the first time I met him, it's the first time I met him. But now looking back, he looks younger, he looks healthier, he's got color back. He almost looked like he was gray, like worn out. I mean, plumb worn out. And he's like, oh, I'm going to visit my mom more. I'm playing with my grandkids. I'm like, how many hours a week are you working now? He goes, so sometimes 0, maybe 2 or 3. And this took 3 years. So that's the other thing too. It takes time. And you could use these tools like for infinity. You're only going to get, I've been doing EOS 7 years, and I still learn every day how to implement it better. So it's,
one of the things you just said there that's so interesting is it's kind of like the value proposition at different levels throughout the organization. Because when I think about as the visionary of an organization, the value proposition of EOS for me is owning my time or getting my time back and focusing the organization on the right things. For the integrator, it's almost like making sure that the organization is focused on the right things and understanding what everybody is accountable for and understanding kind of what that relationship should be like for the visionary. But one of the things that you just keyed in on there, which is so incredible, is like EOS kind of solves all of these problems at different levels. And it all makes the organization operate better.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can, and this is what I was mentioning to you when we were talking earlier, at Florida Power and Light, it took us 7 years to win the Deming Prize. And we just kept getting better and better and better and better and better. And they talk about continuous improvement for the greater good of the company. And you think, even when you set a target, when you get there, competition changed, the landscape changed, regulations changed, people changed, you got different employees. I mean, technology changed. Nothing ever just sits there waiting for you to try to hit that target. It's not. Everything's moving all the time. So you always got opportunity to take it to the next level, always. And the more you learn EOS and the tools in the toolkit, you're more equipped. When something comes at you, you're much better equipped to take it on.
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully this isn't a what's your favorite child type of question. But there's 6 components of EOS. Which one kind of stands out to you the most?
Well, we've done EOS Worldwide as a whole. EOS Worldwide is the holding company. They do a really good job of making my job easy. Like all the materials and everything. So one of the latest things I've heard is they have distilled and figured out like 82% of the time the issue involves people. So by, using data, that is the number one piece of the model. If you don't, and some of it's so hard, like you get in with families. I had one session, there were 6 people at the table, only 1 was not family. The other 5 were all family, 3 generations of family. It blew up. Like in my whole career, I've never dealt with trying to manage a meeting like that. I finally said it right after lunch. I said, I think I'm going to make a decision here, and we just need to go home today. I said, I will come back for a half a day on me, and don't pay me till we do that half of the day. But we really we're not going to be productive today anymore. I mean, and one of them left and went down the hall. We were at a hotel conference room because it was out of town. And one of them left and walked down the hall. I'm going to effing kill myself. And I said, someone needs to go follow her, because when somebody says that, you got to take it seriously. So the grandmother leaves the room, and the whole thing just blew up. And I'm like, we got to go. We can't do this. You just never know what's going to happen.
So
But
82%. So like that's when you talk about EOS Worldwide making it easier for you, like EOS has given a statistic of like everything matters. Like the other interesting part is like, I don't know if I've ever met an organization that lacked vision. Like vision and not about organizing that vision, but most organizations like aspire to be something. They want to create, they want to make a difference in this world through their products or services. But what's interesting about that is like, it comes down to having the right people in the right seat. And I know EOS has a lot of different frameworks to be able to measure that. Like, do you have different tactics or strategies that you use as far as either helping to identify those things or just being able to help people become vulnerable to understand, like, are you the right person for this seat?
Yeah. So when one of the things we do initially is a focus day, vision building 1 and vision building day 2. And those I tell them over and over, we're just building the foundation right now. It's 60 days, but you're going to get a full day, 30 days to absorb it and practice it. We're going to touch base again, 30 more days to absorb it and practice it. And at the end, we're going to have finished your vision traction organizer. And the first thing you answer on there is, what are the core values of the company? So we spend maybe 1 to 2 hours vetting all that out. And then by coming back twice, they'll be like, we thought about it. We want to drop that one, tweak this one. So at the end of the foundation setting, focus day VB1 and VB2, they're like 80% there with the vision traction organizer. And even I've had companies a year or 2 years later tweak their core values. So the one thing we do is, again, for every single employee, do they fit the core values? Are they the right person? And it's not that anyone is a bad person. They just don't fit this company. An example could be the company works 80 hours a week and everybody loves it. Or it could be a company that works 35 hours a week and they're kicking butt and everybody loves that. So you would never want to bring someone who wants to work 80 hours a week into the 35-hour-a-week company. And if the company's working 80 hours a week and you hire someone who's expecting to work 35 hours, that's going to blow up. So why create that, right? So you want to make sure they fit the core values. Then the other piece is, can they do their job? So the clearer you can be on the requirements, we would suggest you put 5 to 7 bullets in their seat that defines their seat and that function that they're performing. Those 5 to 7 bullets should cover like 80% of that job. So you want to make sure, can they really do those 5 to 7 bullets well? So you got a person who really fits your culture and they can do their job really well. That's where you keep driving towards, the right people in the right seats. And it's hard for companies. Probably one of the hardest things is they'll have a rock star who is disrupting the company so badly, like, you really need to get them out. But then what do? They're my top salesperson. They're my top producer. They're this and that. Well, you could replace, nobody's irreplaceable, but you just need to find somebody with that skill who fits your culture, because this person is shredding the place. But sometimes that's like, well, we've been friends since grade school, or that's my brother-in-law, or it's my brother or my father or my sister. It gets really hard sometimes to make those tough people decisions. But just stepping back, if you had a company of 100 people with everyone a right fit for your culture and a right fit for their seat, versus a company where it's only 60%, like 60 out of 100 are right, the company's going to crush them.
Yep. I mean, and that's interesting because it goes back to what you were talking about earlier of technologies, the markets, legislation, everything is constantly changing. And so it's not just about kind of understanding where the puck's going, skating to it. It's understanding that we are operating in a constant mode of change and making sure that we've got the team in place to be able to adapt to that environment, make the right decisions. And when you were talking earlier about like 100% of the people, right person, right seat. And I realize that's an ongoing for every quarterly goal. It's 100% RPRS.
Right.
And I always looked at it as everybody rowing in the same direction. And when we used to have people that like very, very strong personalities, leaders, and high performers, but they were rowing in the wrong direction, it would be such a degradation to the entire organization.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, the rowing analogy, we use it all the time. I mean, someone was using an example. They were going to go it was a bunch of maybe they were Navy SEALs or something. They were just a bunch of tough guys. And the guy who was they were going to go down one of the most treacherous whitewater rafting rivers. And the guy who was the guide said, I think today's the day my dream comes true. And they're like, what? He goes, I've always wanted to get my raft to stop up on this rock. And I've never thought it would be possible. He goes, but looking at you guys, I think we can do it today. So they start off and the boat is spinning and going in all different directions. And he tells everybody, try to row over to the shore if you can. Can we try to get to the shore? They get the boat over there and he goes, you and you out of the boat. I don't care how you get back, but get out of the boat. So he makes them stay on the shore and they take off. Now the boat is going. And they parked, they got the raft to go up on this rock. But he had to get rid of those two. He knew from years of being a guide, those two were messing up the boat. So even though they're like best friends and stuff on this trip, he told them get out. And that was the only way they could accomplish it. Otherwise, they just kept going in different directions, spinning around and not getting, he's, directing them and they're missing where they needed to go. See, by kicking just two people out, they were successful.
That's incredible. And there's so many analogies and other things that happen in the military, in sports, and in other arenas, in which are 100% applicable to business. What do you think makes a great integrator inside of an organization?
I would say there are 5 rules in the rocket fuel. I'm gonna get in trouble because I can't remember the 5 of them. But one of them is no end runs. Either the visionary and the integrator, either one of them, don't be doing end runs. They have got to stay on the same page, and they have got to embrace that they're different. I'll be doing sessions, and the visionary will on a break will stop me and say, "God, the integrator's driving me crazy. I don't know if it's just going to work." And I'm like, "Okay." And then then later the integrator stopped me. That visionary's driving me crazy. So then we get back in the room. I say, "Listen, you two, the fact that you are feeling abrasive against each other is perfect." And they go, "What?" I go, "Yeah." Because you are the visionary is going to be bringing 20 ideas a week and looking 100 miles out. Sometimes he's so far away, he turns around, there's nobody behind him. And the integrator, you're making this company run and work. But together, the two of you together is dynamite, but you got to be on the same page. And I'll tell him, I want you to spend 4 hours a month minimum out of the office, just the two of you, no computers, no phones, just sitting across the table from each other for 4 hours a month. I know it's where am I going to find the time? But you will get on the same page and you'll become like Batman and Robin. But if you try to smooth things out, that's not good, because you need to have that friction, because your jobs demand that you be very different types of people. The visionary would hate doing the integrated job, and the integrator would throw up being the visionary. That's a good thing, but you've got to embrace that friction, embrace that you're different, and get on the same page. That's when the thing will take off.
Do you think when you see a good pairing, does that integrator usually have kind of industry expertise, or are they a leader of leaders and a conductor of trains, therefore they can be successful?
I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think there's a hard rule on that one. Let's say it's a practice that does brain surgery, right? I don't think you want to hire an integrator who was working at a plastics manufacturing facility. What are you doing? We're cutting brains here. What's the goal? Not kill somebody. That's an extreme example, but it makes sense, right? You probably want an MD as the integrator, right? If you're a practice that's doing brain surgery for your practice. But I think in general, if you've got the skill, and this does even apply to a practice that has brain surgeons, if you're a really capable integrator that can run a business, you're not in there doing surgery, and you'll probably never even be allowed in the room, right? Because it's all kind of that's another thing with regulations, right? HEPA and all. You'd have to get this person's permission for you to come in the room, all that stuff, right before the surgery. But a good integrator, they're priceless. Really rock star integrators are hard to find. There are, I think, way more visionaries that are good than integrators that are good. So it's hard. Industry specific could do one of two things. It could bias them, and they wouldn't be as open as someone that's not have experience, because they could bring their biases in. But it could help too, because then you don't have to explain basic things to them. If they ask silly questions, it's like, what? You're the boss and you don't even know that? Like, what? So I guess I don't think it's a hard and fast one. But having a good integrator is priceless. And I think as far as do they have industry experience or not, I could go either way.
And you were talking a little bit about culture earlier, and especially when we were talking about the analogies between sports and rowing and those types of things. This all kind of comes back to culture. And when you've got that dynamic duo, the visionary and the integrator at the top, trying to lead this organization into the future, what are some kind of telltale signs that they can be on the lookout for from like the culture's not quite right, or something is not working here? What kind of signs would they see?
You would, you could see things where they're not the right person or they're not in the right seat or both. I mean, if it's both, it's kind of a no-brainer. But if it's one or the other and they're a rock star on the other side, that gets harder to decide that you need to do something with that person. But basically, we do a thing called a people analyzer. It's not rocket science. I have some small businesses that have copied corporate review plans, and it's a massive amount of paperwork and effort, and everybody's giving feedback, and they're trying to track it in big spreadsheets and all. I'm like, whoa, you're a small company. Why are you trying to have like a Bank of America review process? Like, you don't have the time or the money to do that. And it's so simple. If you get your core values where you want them, and you have the right to tweak those anytime you want, but you get the core values where you want them. Let's say there's 5. We want you to have a bar where you've got 3 would be pluses and 2 would be plus minus. We don't expect like every single person to be all pluses against the core values. But it kind of, at first they freak out, how do we choose? But once you start getting into it, they're like, that core value's got to be strong. So it becomes easier. You might get down to the last 2, like how do we split them? But it's not as hard as people think. You can have 3 pluses and 2 plus minus on the core values. And then for the seat, we have what we call GWC, get it, want it, and have the skill to do it. And you want those to be hard yeses. You can have an exception if you can put someone in there that is a rock star and you think in 3 to 6 months they'll get up to speed, that's your decision. But to say, oh, it's going to take them 2 years to get up to speed, then don't put them in like an apprentice seat or something. If you need that seat for your business, don't put someone in that's going to take 2 years to get up to speed, because what are you going to do for the 2 years? Make a bunch of mistakes and lose awesome clients? So they're not like training grounds. You want people to be in there. It's a hard yes. They get it. They want it, and they can do the job. So to your question, like you'll start seeing, like if one of your cultures is like respect each other, and you keep catching this person disrespectful, jokester, and coming in late, missing meetings, coming late to meetings, disrupting meetings. At some point, you got to say, wait a minute. And we do what we call 3-strike rule. Bring 3 concrete examples of the behavior, sit them down and say, we've observed 1, 2, and 3. I'm giving you 30 days. I want to see improvement. And then 60 days and 90 days. Usually they're going to make improvements, or they're going to be belligerent and they don't show up for the 90-minute meeting. So it's very rare that you're going to have to take action. They show up at the 90-minute meeting still belligerent. You man, okay, let me help you pack your stuff. But that rarely happens. Either they see the writing on the wall, like, I need to go. So instead of having to get fired and all that junk, they just leave. Or they make improvement, which is what you want, right? So if they make improvement, that's awesome. And then on the get it, want it, and have capacity, get it is kind of fuzzy because it's kind of like when you see someone like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, he gets it as a quarterback. But then you see some other like college games with a quarterback, even some of the pros, and you look at that quarterback like, man, they don't get it. And then they get benched even sometimes. It's like, man, they don't get it. So that's a hard one to quantify. But when you see someone that gets it, you like, okay, they get it. They get their role. That's what we're interested in. Do they get the seat that they're in? And then do they want it? That's sometimes mind-boggling. I had a $40 million company, and when we were creating the people analyzer, that we asked the CFO, kind of tongue-in-cheek, do you want it? And he goes, no. And everybody, ha, 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 the whole leadership team laughed. And he goes, I'm not kidding. And then we all paused. We're like, what? The guy was like CFO for years, big $40 million company. And he goes, no, I'm sick of it. I hate it. So it disrupted the whole day. And at the end of the day, he resigned. So the next day, the CEO calls me. He goes, remember when you left, I was talking to the CFO. I'm like, yeah. He goes, he resigned. I said, oh, Mike. I said, did I cause that? I was starting to feel guilty. He goes, no. He goes, and then you know what? I've been thinking about it overnight. And today, he goes, we've known for like 15 months he shouldn't be in that seat anymore. We knew it. And I'm like, wow. So who knows how much longer it would have gone. But the fact that so think of a company without EOS, CFO in the wrong seat for 15 months. Everybody knows it, but everybody's dancing around it. And who knows how much longer he could have gone. But instead, the CFO helped him find another job. He was thriving in it and happy as a clam. They promoted a woman and she was crushing it as CFO. It was win-win for everybody. But without asking him the question, do you want this job? We would have never known. I was shocked when he said no. And it was pretty incredible. And then the last one is, do they have the skill? So there was no question he had the skill. He was a great CFO, but he didn't want the job anymore, and it was showing. Everybody could see it.
And those are like, I don't know. I think sometimes business leaders fall into traps in those types of circumstances where either we want them to keep going or we just don't want to make the decision, but it's actually healthier for everybody. And it is. That was a breakthrough moment, and both parties are going to be happier and thrive wherever they go.
Well, we have history where we know they were happier and thrived, both parties. They were best buddies. They were good. That was another thing, really good friends. CEO and CFO were good friends. So that's another reason you kind of let things go when you see them. There's all kinds of reasons, but EOS is it's agnostic. It doesn't know any. EOS has no mind. It's when you apply those tools, you're going to discover things. You're going to make discoveries, and you just got to be willing to stick with it. I can't. Almost all my clients want to tweak something. It's like no. And then they want to fight with me. I'm like, okay, let's go. But you're going to lose because EOS is like magic. It works.
And when you think about EOS and accountability, right person, right seat, vision, and then you think about strategy, how do you guide your clients through like the development of strategy with the accountability pieces and all of the things that come that are just holy with EOS?
Yeah, I've been doing this for 40 years. When you've got a clear strategy, you've got a scorecard that you're measuring things that are critical. You're solving problems at the root cause. You're working to get the best people in the seat for your culture and your jobs. You're meeting every week. The level 10 meeting, like without fail, my clients just fall in love with that thing. Because, I was at Bank of America for 11 years. I had an annual goal. So I would crank it up because I knew they were going to wrap up the budgets like end of September, beginning of October is when they locked down the budget. So somewhere around August, I'm looking for a little gem that I could shine when my boss is going in to do reviews and then get my bonus fully committed and it gets locked in the budget. So then mid-October, I slack off, get my bonus in February. So kind of coasting a little all the way. End of the year, last 2 weeks, everything shuts down at the bank. When you coasted it, we wouldn't set our goals for that next year until like March or April. So I'm like, what kind of, at the time, that's what we did. Now I'm in EOS. It's like every quarter, you're setting annual goals. You're setting targets every quarter. Every week you're asking, remember the thing you said that was really important and you were going to get it done? How's it going? You're asking every week. And any things that are knocking you down or headwinds or even stuff that could be a good opportunity, you're making to-dos. I can't tell you how many meetings I came out of where I committed to do something, get distracted 2 hours later. I don't even remember. I said I was going to do that. And maybe 1 out of 10 chance my boss would say, hey, did you get that done? I'm like, oh, I'm wrapping it up when I really hadn't even done anything. I'm like, get out of there and I'm going to work my butt off, stay till 3 a.m. if I have to get something together versus every week you're in a level 10 working on the business. I try to tell people, don't drag your business into that meeting because some of the people realize, ooh, the leadership team's here. I got their attention. I can't get their attention any other time during the week. So let's drag work into here. And I'm constantly having to tell them, please don't do that. Let's just say you got 40 hours a week. I'm asking for 1.5 hours. You got 38.5 hours the rest of the week to deal with all that other minutia. Take this 90 minutes, it's sacred, and think of what a gift it is you're giving yourself. You're really knocking things down that are holding your business back. You're IDSing and identify, discuss, and solving things at the root cause, and making sure that whoever said they were going to do it, next week you're going to ask them, did you do it? I mean, it's a powerful way to get traction. So all these, I have been doing this for about 40 years. I've been out of school like 43 years. So the first couple of years I was an engineer, but I've been doing this kind of work for all that time. And when you have measurements and you've got ways to get traction and you're holding people accountable and you're just being open and honest and trusting each other, man, the results you can get are phenomenal.
I agree. Having lived and breathed it in the past.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice? So there's somebody out there and they're either self-implementing or they just read the book Traction and they've had this aha moment and they're like, I want to see the light. What's one piece of advice you have for somebody that's about to get started on this journey?
If you want to take a crack at it yourself, knock yourself out. We are just an open book. You go on EOSworldwide.com and you can get, or even you just Google EOS Worldwide, you will be able to sit at your computer for 10 years and not see it all. That's how we are open. And this is interesting because when I was in other companies, some of the companies were like, don't tell anybody. And others were open. You could come see what we're doing because we knew if you didn't get it, you could come see what we're doing. You're not going to be able to do it because you just don't get it. You're not going to be able to do it. So if you want to give it a shot on your own, then by all means, take a shot at it. But I just want you to know that as EOS implementers, we all commit to doing a complimentary 90-minute meeting. And we walk you through all 6 components of the model. And then we walk you through all the steps of our proven process. And it truly is 90 minutes. I might have gone over 5 minutes every once in a blue moon, but usually we're done before the 90 minutes. But it will give you the chance that either this is going to resonate with you or it's not. But I think you owe it to yourself to take the 90 minutes. Worse, it's not going to be wasted. You will come out of there with a couple of nuggets, I guarantee you. But you can also see, well, first of all, do you gel with the implementer? Like if I'm doing it, do you like me? Are we going to get along and be able to work together? But then you're also going to see in detail what the model and the process looks like. And then you can decide if it resonates. If it doesn't resonate, I'm okay with that. I'm not like I don't have sales quotas and somebody beat me over the head and I got to close the deal. If I have to drag you into doing EOS, I'm going to have to drag you around the whole time and it's not going to be fun for either one of us. So it's like, but at least my advice is sit with an implementer for the 90-minute meeting.
And so how does someone just listen to this podcast and they're like, Bruce is for me. How do they find you?
Oh gosh. Google Bruce Sheridan. EOS Implementer. Bruce Sheridan, EOS Implementer. Oh, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a microsite on EOSworldwide.com. You'll be able to, or it's bruce.sheridan@EOSworldwide.com.
There it is. And if you could have, lunch, or maybe this is a better question, which is, who is one person inside of the EOS ecosystem that you just admire and look up to?
Boy, I would say Don Tinney. He was Gino's integrator. So, the book Traction, everybody knows Gino Wickman. He's a rock star. But Don Tinney was the integrator. He was in the background. He was running everything. He's just soft-spoken. Has done like 1,000 sessions. He was the number 2. So him and Gino founded EOS. But I could sit and talk to him till I lost my voice. That's how interesting he is, that I would just be sucking it all up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you coming in and sharing the wisdom. And look forward to connecting with you in the future. And hopefully everybody took notes, not only of the amazing things that you talked about when it related to the relationships between the integrator and the visionary or signs of bad culture, but also hopefully they took down your email.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Ryan.
Confessions of an EOS Implementer is brought to you by Talent Harbor. To find out more about Talent Harbor and our fractional services and talent search solutions for businesses that operate on EOS, visit talentharbor.com. And then make sure to search for EOS Implementer in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Talent Harbor, thanks for listening.